In the narrow hallway of a trailer housing 90 cramped residents, we find Mary Helen Kaboki, who is waiting to get a home.
Embarrassed, ashamed.
Ashamed of her tiny little room, and because there is no room for her 3 kids.
They're very impatient. I keep telling them I'm going to get a house.
Mary Helen, like many others, believes some of the government money coming into Attawapiskat has gone missing. Questionable investments include a new Zamboni at the hockey arena, paid for by the Education Fund.
And you're only lucky if there's people on the top that can speak for you. So people on the top will first prioritize their family and friends, and the rest will never make it on the list.
One of the people she is referring to is Chief Teresa Spence. A 2010 audit of the council's finances revealed, among other things, budgets not compiled and undocumented salaries. The chief's response:
"We're not hiding nothing. If we were hiding something, it wouldn't be an audit."
The feds will find out when it sends a team of auditors to look at the books.
The government that should be placed under third-party management is right across the way, right over there.
This government has made large-scale investments in this community.
Another question for the chief: why she traveled on an $8,400 chartered plane to Toronto Island.
Toronto Island? Yes. I don't know where you're getting your information, but you should get your facts straight.
But it says here it was $8,000. We showed her a faxed invoice obtained by CTV. She left the room, came back 15 minutes later.
I went to Toronto with my council members and my daughter. So.
But you denied going on this flight a few minutes ago.
I didn't know about it. I didn't look at the date, but we did go. Okay. You have it here, so don't start making allegations.
Caught in the middle of the blaming game, people like Mary Helen, who will continue to wait for a home.
Similar stories to Mary Helen's everywhere you look here, and she feels the way many do. The money may be coming into this community, but it's not reaching her or her children. Lisa.
And that is the big question, Danielle. What is the reaction, though, there on the reserve now that the government is bringing in a third party to take over the management there?
Well, news spreads around here pretty quickly, Lisa, and I'll tell you the first reaction for many was a big smile, because this translates into transparency, accountability. They can finally know where the money is going, and ultimately what this is a glimmer of hope that something can be done. Lisa.
That's what everybody wants. Thank you, Danielle, from the Reserve tonight.
There was an outside audit done on, how you spent your money in the Reserve. There were some questions raised about missing receipts or how the money was spent. Do you hold any kind of responsibility, or do you wish you could go back and kind of fill those holes in your own auditing system, or do you feel as though the money was spent exactly the way it should have been?
Well, there's always in audit reports and recommendations. There's always that, and we learn from that, and we try to improve things. And when the audit recommend such things like that, we do look into it. So this is what I mean. The audit tells everything, so we were accountable to everything. We did our reports, and audit is like that to everybody, making recommendations. So we didn't do any crime here, but that's what I mean. The government is focusing the audit in the financial, but he's not even focusing on the emergency matter right now. He doesn't even have a plan. So when you keep asking the audit, this is not about audit, it's about the emergency. What is his plan? And he didn't even have the courtesy to give us a notice that the third party is coming in. The 2 Indian rep came to my community yesterday. He told me that they were going to come in, but didn't even indicate the third party was going to be on that plane. And I was away in my community. Come on, at least have a decency to say, okay, we're sending a third party manager with a plan.
And there you have it. That was Chief Teresa Spence from Attawapiskat speaking. And that leads us into our discussion about Attawapiskat, Mike. How are you coping?
Well, the situation in Attawapiskat is terrible. I mean, there's no denying that, and it's a very complicated situation. And even the dialogue that took place in those interviews, there are certain things that definitely I start to I don't know even how to. I believe that in the end, just to get it all out of the way and clear the air, that obviously the only thing that's going to get anywhere will be the forensic audit. The government has attached that to third-party management now, which is unfortunate, and I know that there are several other reasons for any band to really, really dislike third-party management. Often the same problems will continue for years and years and years, even under third-party management.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, this is not a situation that can be really explained really well in a short period of time, and ultimately, as much as it's a very important story, it originally would have probably fallen outside of our show coverage, because our coverage is more about Canadian politics,
right?
And this is in essence still a crisis, no matter how the crisis began.
I'm glad you said that, because this should not be a political issue. It should not be. But what is happening in Attawapiskat with those poor souls in terrible shelters, freezing their asses off, with God knows what to eat. You know what I mean? This poverty.
I'm going to guess that there's a lot of people probably with that are responsible for the way that this has ended up.
Exactly, and this is what I want to get to. This should not be a political issue. I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't want to meet a Canadian who didn't think that those people up there need help. They need help, right?
Yeah, that's quite obvious.
What's happened here is we've got politicians on both ends of the spectrum that have turned this situation into a political football. Now, normally, I would just say that I would point out the the cynical approach of the Conservatives to this matter, but I see it on both sides in this time, and unfortunately for me and for this show, because it has caused issues, I wrote it.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know if it's caused issues. It's definitely started a conversation, and that's absolutely fair too, because dialogue is always important. And
no, I mean, I'm not talking just between me and other members of the panel or the show. I'm talking about even me with myself, because it might not have been the most advisable thing to do, but I wrote an open letter to Charlie Angus on the Attawapiskat issue, and saying that that it was poor strategy to demand the help but resist the audit.
Right.
He fell, in my opinion, and I explained this in the letter. Anyone can see it at www.oppositionradio.com. I felt that Stephen Harper, who probably doesn't really, he's not known for taking a humane approach to any situation. Okay, while developing his response, the first thing he did was demand a forensic audit and put the band under third-party management. Now,
right. I'm glad you said that, because that is very important to understand here too. Is that really Stephen Harper kind of forced the politics of this out?
Oh yeah, no. Stephen Harper started it. let's not make any mistake about that.
When the government, because I mean, let's not forget too that Charlie Angus wrote the letter in the Huffington Post. That was, I think, 3 weeks after the government, or after the Chief Spence had issued the state of emergency for the third year in a row, and Indian Affairs had been in Attawapiskat 10 times already in 2011. They knew what was going to unfold once winter
Charlie
came.
knew, the chief knew, everyone knows, and the thing is, it's not just Attawapiskat.
Were still very slow to act, and then they were very ignorant in their approach to the situation. They are playing politics with it too.
Absolutely. Now here's the thing: the Conservatives turned this into a political issue when it was just a humanitarian issue. Okay, but because they did that, because their first move was to place make help conditional upon the band accepting third-party rule and a forensic audit. Because they did that, because they made the help conditional on that, turned it political. Okay? Now, of course, the band doesn't want that. Now, Charlie had a decision to make. The NDP had a decision to make. To stick to the humanitarian side of it, or to jump in on behalf of the First Nations bureaucracy that never wants the federal government in their affairs. And I thought that strategically, for him and the NDP, he made the wrong decision. Okay? That's my thinking. And all I'm concerned about is two things. Help the poor people in Attawapiskat, okay? And win the next election.
You know, Charlie Angus's hands are kind of tied in the sense too, in that he really has no influence over the way the government's going to act, or whatever ways they're going to be able to, or
Exactly.
ways they say they're going to come in and help the community. So his only choice, to some extent, was to just raise shit as much as he could. You know,
No. That's not his only choice. His choice was whether or not to allow the issue to be coupled with the third-party rule and the audit. You know what I mean? I think he should have stayed out of that fray. I don't think the NDP should have been seen to be defending the band's financial autonomy in this situation. And here's why. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, okay? I really, and this is the thing, like, the responses I got from that letter were mostly nasty, okay? Let's put it that way. And it's because people weren't allowing me to discuss the matter on a level different from black and white, right and wrong. I was discussing the matter on a strategic basis. He's giving Stephen Harper the best wedge issue the guy could ever ask for. Because, like it or not, okay, I mean, I'm on the side of social justice in this situation. Now, we could debate on a whole other subject what social justice is and how best to affect it. But in this letter, I was talking strategy and how to avoid handing Stephen Harper the best wedge issue there is. Let's not forget that the Conservatives are very well known for capitalizing on the ignorance and prejudices of people in this country. Okay? And that is wedge politics. No one can deny that there's a massive number of Canadians out there who basically have a set of negative prejudices towards Aboriginal people. That can't be denied. That is an unfortunate reality that we live in. And that reality on the ground is something that has to be contended with by the NDP and the Conservatives. The Conservatives have the advantage in this. They tied the third-party rule to the aid, provocatively antagonized the Native people. The Native people react negatively. Charlie had a decision to make. Support the humanitarian aid aspect of it, or just pressure just keep the pressure on the humanitarian aid. Say this first and then that later. Whatever. But to come out and directly in contradiction to what the government wanted to do in terms of third-party rule and an audit, like, to defend their right not to be audited was a tactical blunder, which, it looks from his Facebook while he's reversed.